Most men destroy attraction before it even begins, not because they are unattractive, but because they reveal too much too fast. They speak to be understood, chase to be chosen, and hand over their emotional world hoping it will buy devotion. But here is the brutal truth no one tells you. The moment a man becomes fully predictable, desire starts to die. She will never openly admit this, but mystery creates obsession far faster than emotional exposure ever will. The man who cannot control his emotions becomes easy to read, and the man who is easy to read is easy to replace. So ask yourself this: why do certain men walk into a room and instantly command attention without begging for it? Why do some men barely speak, yet people feel drawn to them as if they carry something dangerous beneath the surface? Because attraction is rarely built through comfort, it is built through tension, uncertainty, and emotional control. What you give freely is often valued cheaply, but what is revealed slowly gains power inside the imagination. And imagination is where obsession begins. This video is not designed for men seeking approval. It is for those prepared to understand seduction at its darkest psychological level. Today you are about to uncover 15 habits that separate the man who chases validation from the man who silently controls the emotional frame. The difference between a man drained by anxiety and a man who uses his energy with precision, like a calculated dose of poison or pleasure, released carefully enough to create craving, attachment, and emotional dependency. Today we stop performing for attention. Today we learn how power really works, because in every interaction, one person controls the emotional atmosphere, and the other reacts to it. Law 1. Protect your shadow. Most men kill attraction with honesty, not because honesty is weak, but because they hand themselves over too early. They explain too much, confess too much, reveal every scar like they are standing in court begging to be understood. And then they wonder why people lose interest. Tell me something. Have you ever opened up to someone at 2 a.m. thinking that if they finally saw the real you, they would stay? You talked about your childhood, your fears, the nights you felt worthless, the betrayal that hardened you. In that moment it felt deep, raw, genuine. Then days later something changed. The tension disappeared. The mystery died. Suddenly you felt exposed instead of connected. Like you handed someone the keys to your inner world, only for them to walk through it casually, without reverence. That was your mistake. People crave what they cannot fully reach. The human mind is addicted to unfinished puzzles. The moment someone feels they have fully figured you out, part of the fascination disappears. Not because you lacked value, but because nothing remained undiscovered. That is why mystery is power. A man with no shadows becomes predictable, and predictable men are rarely remembered. They are consumed quickly, then emotionally discarded. But the dangerous man, he reveals himself in fragments. A sentence here, a cold pause there, a look that says more than words ever could. He does not lie. He simply understands that not everyone deserves access to his depths. I learned this the hard way. There was a period where I explained myself constantly. If someone pulled away, I chased clarity. If tension appeared, I tried to fix it with honesty. And every single time, I lost leverage, lost intrigue, lost myself. Then one day, I stopped over-explaining. Someone asked me about my past, expecting the usual emotional monologue. Instead, I just smiled slightly and said, "Some experiences teach you silence." That was it. And strangely, that silence created more tension than any confession ever had. Because mystery is not distance. It is controlled access. When you stop emotionally performing for approval, people start feeling your presence differently. They lean in more, think about you longer, replay your words in their head, trying to decode you. That is the shadow, not your pain, not your trauma, your inaccessible side, the part of you that cannot be consumed instantly. And once you understand this, everything changes. You stop treating your soul like a public exhibition. You stop bleeding emotions just to prove you are real. You become selective, calm, unreadable in the right moments. Because the strongest man in the room is usually the one who says less, but makes every silence feel heavy. Law 2. Vulnerability is measured, not donated. Nobody tells men this, so I will. Some people do not ask about your pain because they care. They ask because your wounds reveal where you can be controlled. That truth alone destroys illusions. You were taught that vulnerability creates connection, that opening your chest makes people trust you. But real life is darker than that. Most people are not emotionally clean enough to hold your pain with respect. They collect it, store it, and if the dynamic ever changes, they use it against you. You have probably lived this already. You opened up during a weak moment, and later noticed the shift in their eyes. Less respect, less tension, less attraction. Suddenly, your deepest scars became silent leverage in someone else's hands. That is why emotional control matters. Weak men either hide everything or overshare everything. Powerful men understand timing. They reveal slowly, precisely, like poison measured drop by drop. Because there is a difference between connection and emotional leakage. One creates intimacy, the other creates pity, and pity kills desire faster than rejection ever will. You do not need to narrate your entire trauma for someone to feel your depth. Sometimes one restrained sentence carries more weight than a 20-minute confession. Something like, "I learned the hard way that not everyone protects what you reveal." Then stop talking. Let the silence breathe. That single line creates more emotional gravity than desperate honesty ever could. Why? Because restraint signals strength. It tells people there is more beneath the surface, but access must be earned. That changes the entire dynamic. You stop being emotionally available to everyone. You stop treating your wounds like tickets for validation. Your pain becomes guarded territory, and people value what feels difficult to access. That is the brutal reality most men discover too late. Law 3. Master time. Most men destroy attraction with speed. The second a message arrives, they reply instantly, like their entire nervous system is waiting for validation disguised as communication. And maybe you have done this too. Phone lights up, your heart spikes, and suddenly your attention belongs to someone else. That is not connection. That is dependency. Here is the brutal truth. The man who is always available slowly becomes emotionally invisible. Because people do not obsess over what they already own. They obsess over what feels slightly out of reach. I learned this after ruining my own value more times than I admit. There was a period where I answered every message within seconds. I thought it showed interest, maturity, consistency. But the faster I responded, the less tension existed. Conversations became dry, predictable, disposable. Then one day, I stopped reacting immediately, not to play childish games, to regain control of my attention. And something strange happened. The silence started working harder than my words ever did. People began double texting, wondering where I was, replaying conversations in their head. Because absence creates mental noise. The mind hates unfinished tension. That is why delay is powerful. Not because you ignore people, because you stop treating access to you like a public service. You let messages breathe. You answer when you choose, not when anxiety commands you to. And the moment you do that, the dynamic changes completely. You stop looking emotionally hungry, you start looking grounded, controlled, dangerous in a calm way. Law 4. Guard your truths. Most men overshare because they are terrified of being misunderstood. So they explain everything, their trauma, their past, why they act distant, why they struggle to trust. They speak like lawyers defending themselves in court, hoping honesty will make someone stay. But it rarely does, because the moment someone fully decodes you, part of the fascination dies. People are drawn to mystery more than information. I once watched a man ruin his own attraction in a single night. The girl was completely locked into him, curious, invested. Then he spent 2 straight hours explaining every wound, every betrayal, every insecurity from his past. By the end, the tension was gone. He thought he created intimacy. What he created was emotional exhaustion. A powerful man does not reveal himself all at once. He reveals pieces, fragments, enough to create depth, never enough to remove intrigue. Instead of saying, "I have trust issues because I was abandoned," say, "Some experiences teach you not to trust too easily." Then leave it there. No emotional essay, no desperate clarification, because what remains unfinished lingers in the mind, and the man who cannot be fully figured out becomes impossible to forget. Law 5. If there is no tension, there is no investment. Most men become forgettable because they try too hard to be safe. They reply too fast, agree too much, stay too available. They think consistency creates desire, but after a while, constant access kills emotional tension. And without tension, the mind stops investing. Maybe you have lived this already. You gave someone your full attention from the beginning. Long conversations, fast replies, loyalty before they earned it. You thought, if I treat them right, they will value me. Then one day you felt the shift. Less excitement, less curiosity, less effort from them. Why? Because human beings rarely obsess over what comes easily. They obsess over what feels uncertain, slightly out of reach, emotionally unfinished. I learned this after watching a man destroy his own attraction in real time. Every day he texted first. Every night he stayed available. He became emotionally predictable. And slowly the woman who once chased him started treating him like background noise. That is the danger of being too accessible. Pleasant men calm emotions. Dangerous men move them, and desire is movement. That does not mean becoming toxic or cruel. It means understanding rhythm, presence, absence. Knowing when to lean in and when to disappear before your energy becomes ordinary. Sometimes the strongest move is ending the conversation first. Not dramatically, calmly. I'll leave you with that thought, then vanish. No over-explaining, no emotional cleanup, just silence. Because silence creates tension, and tension creates replay value in the mind. Law 6. Reflect. Do not reveal. Here is a truth most men learn too late. The more you explain yourself, the less mystery you have left. Weak men enter conversations trying to impress. They tell every story, reveal every trauma, overshare every emotion, hoping to be understood. But the man who talks too much slowly gives away his leverage. Powerful men do something different. They observe, they listen, they let the other person reveal themselves first. And strangely, that creates deeper attachment. I once sat across from someone who talked for nearly an hour straight about her fears, relationships, childhood wounds. I barely spoke about myself. I just listened carefully, asked the right questions, stayed calm. At the end, she said something interesting. I feel like I've never connected with someone this deeply before. That is the secret. People become attached to those who make them feel seen, not necessarily those who reveal the most. So stop trying to prove your depth through exposure. Instead, become the mirror. Let people talk. Let them project. Let them search for meaning in your silences. Because the man who reveals less keeps control of the emotional frame. And control, quietly held, is what creates real psychological power. Law 7. Silence is a weapon. Most men talk too much when they are afraid of losing control. Watch closely. The moment tension appears, they rush to explain themselves. They defend, clarify, overtext, overtalk, overreact. Why? Because silence terrifies insecure people. Maybe you know this feeling, that urge to instantly reply so nobody misunderstands you. That pressure to fix the mood before someone pulls away. That anxiety sitting in your chest when a message goes unanswered for too long. That is not communication. That is fear wearing a polite mask. And the brutal part? The more you speak from anxiety, the less power your words carry, because people can feel when your words are trying to hold them in place. Silence does the opposite. Silence creates gravity. I learnt this after a woman once accused me of changing. Old version of me would have rushed to explain everything. Instead, I looked at her calmly, stayed quiet for a few seconds, then smiled slightly and changed the subject. You know what happened? She became nervous, started talking more, explaining herself, filling the silence I refused to fill. That is when I understood something dangerous. The person who controls silence controls emotional tension. Weak men panic inside silence. Powerful men use it like a blade. Because silence forces projection, the other person starts wondering what you think. Whether you are angry, detached, losing interest, and while they are trapped inside their own head, you stay centered. That is dominance without noise. Law 8. The body is never given from need. This one destroys a lot of men. They confuse physical access with emotional connection. They think sex creates attachment, so they give their body attention, energy, hoping intimacy will make someone stay. But deep down, most of the time, it is not desire, it is loneliness, and people can feel the difference. Have you ever slept with someone and felt emptier afterward? Like your body was there, but your mind knew something was off. Because when intimacy comes from emotional hunger, you are not sharing yourself. You are negotiating for validation. That changes everything. The dangerous man does not use his body to beg for closeness. He treats intimacy like access to a private world, earned, not handed out from desperation. That is why restraint creates more tension than instant surrender ever will. Because when someone feels they cannot fully access you whenever they want, attraction becomes psychological. Now they are not just chasing your body, they are chasing permission. And permission has power. Law 9. The mind is the real seduction. Anybody can create physical attraction. That part is easy. The rare person is the one who enters someone's mind and stays there for weeks. That is real power. Think about it. You probably forgot most people you kissed, but there are certain conversations, certain looks, certain unfinished moments you still remember years later. Why? Because the body experiences pleasure. The mind experiences obsession. Most men seduce physically because they never learned how to create tension psychologically. They flirt directly, reveal too much, say exactly what they want. But the strongest seduction is suggestion, a sentence that lingers, a pause that feels loaded, a look that says more than words. I once told someone, some people touch your mind before they ever touch your skin. Then I changed the subject completely. Days later, she brought it up again. That is the difference. When you stimulate the mind, the conversation does not end when you leave. It keeps replaying in silence, over and over, and once someone starts replaying you mentally, part of them is already attached. Law 9. The mind is the real battlefield. Most men try to seduce through the body because they never learned how to invade the mind. They rely on looks, attention, touch, fast escalation. And maybe it works for a night. Maybe it even gets them sex. But afterward, silence. No obsession. No replay in the other person's head. Nothing lasting. Because bodies get satisfied. Minds don't. Think about the people you still remember years later. It usually was not the most attractive one. It was the one who disturbed your thoughts. The one who said one strange sentence that stayed in your head for days. The one you never fully figured out. That is real seduction. I once told a woman during a conversation, some people are dangerous because they know exactly how to enter your mind quietly. Then I stopped talking. She laughed nervously, but days later she brought it up again. That is the difference between physical attraction and psychological tension. One fades after contact, the other grows in absence. Most men talk too much trying to impress. Powerful men suggest. They leave doors half open. They let imagination finish the sentence, because imagination always creates stronger desire than reality. Law 10, the one who can leave controls the game. This is where most men collapse emotionally, not when they are rejected, when they realize they are afraid to walk away. You know that feeling. Refreshing your phone, waiting for a reply that never comes. Pretending not to care while your mind spirals. Staying loyal to someone already giving attention to everybody except you. That is not love. That is emotional dependency. And dependency destroys power faster than weakness ever could. The moment someone feels you will stay no matter how badly they treat you, the balance dies. They stop respecting your presence because your absence no longer feels possible. I learned this after staying too long in situations that were already dead. I kept trying to understand, trying to fix it, but the more I stayed, the smaller I became. Then one day, I stopped arguing, stopped chasing closure, sent one calm message, and disappeared completely. No drama, no emotional speech, no begging, and suddenly the silence hit harder than all my explanations ever did. Because people only understand your value when they feel the weight of losing access to you. That is why walking away is power, not because you stop caring, because you stop abandoning yourself just to keep someone else. The dangerous man is not the loudest man. He is the one capable of leaving without collapsing emotionally. The one who can feel attachment without becoming controlled by it. And once you reach that level, something changes permanently inside you. You stop fearing distance. You stop chasing reassurance. You stop negotiating your dignity for temporary attention. Now your presence has weight because it is no longer desperate to stay, and strangely enough, that is when people start fearing your absence the most. Because the rarest thing in modern relationships is not beauty. It is someone who can walk away calmly and never look back. Law 11. The man who needs validation becomes controllable. This is where most men secretly lose themselves. Not in rejection, in approval. You can see it everywhere. Men rewriting messages 5 times before sending them, adjusting their personality depending on who they are talking to, pretending to be calmer, softer, funnier, less intense, all just to avoid being disliked. Maybe you have done this too. You wanted someone to choose you so badly that little by little you abandoned yourself first. And that is the tragedy nobody talks about. The moment your behavior is built around acceptance, your identity stops belonging to you. Now your mood depends on replies. Your confidence depends on attention. Your peace depends on somebody else's approval. That is not confidence. That is emotional slavery disguised as being considerate. I learned this brutally. There was a time when one cold reply could ruin my entire day. One delayed message, and my mind started spiraling. I became hyper-aware of every tone change, every silence, every shift in energy. Why? Because my validation was outsourced. And once another person controls your emotional state, they control you without even trying. That is why powerful men stop performing. They stop begging to be understood, stop shrinking themselves to keep peace, stop explaining every part of their personality just to avoid judgment. Because respect is not born from pleasing people, it is born from firmness. The moment someone realizes you will not betray yourself for acceptance, the dynamic changes completely. Law 12. Protect yourself with ambiguity. Most people destroy their own power by revealing too much too early. They explain every feeling, every intention, every emotion. They think transparency makes them trustworthy, but what it really does is make them predictable. And predictable people are easy to manipulate. Think about it. The moment someone fully understands your emotional patterns, they know exactly how to control the interaction, They know what hurts you, what triggers you, what keeps you attached. That is why total clarity can become dangerous. I once watched a man destroy all tension with one conversation. The woman was curious about him, emotionally invested, trying to figure him out. Then he sat there explaining every insecurity, every past trauma, every detail about how he thinks. By the end of the night, the mystery was dead. He thought honesty created connection. What it created was emotional overexposure. Powerful men understand something deeper. Not everything needs to be explained. Sometimes the strongest response is controlled ambiguity. Someone says, "You seem distant lately." Most men panic and start defending themselves immediately. But a man with emotional control pauses, keeps calm and simply says, "Maybe you are finally seeing me clearly." Then silence. No clarification, no emotional essay. Now the other person starts thinking instead of you. That is power, because uncertainty creates mental tension, and tension creates emotional investment. The dangerous man is not impossible to understand because he lies. He is difficult to read because he does not hand over unrestricted access to his inner world. And once you stop explaining yourself to everyone, people start feeling your presence differently, heavier, sharper, almost impossible to fully decode. That is when attraction stops being physical and becomes psychological. Law 13. Never give the full ending. Most men ruin desire at the exact moment they think they are creating it. They give too much, too fast, too completely, the full story, full availability, full emotion, full access. And then they wonder why people lose interest right after things start feeling perfect. Here is the truth nobody tells you. Desire does not die from rejection. It dies from completion. Think about the people you could not forget. Usually, they were the ones who left something unresolved, something unfinished, a sentence that never got explained, a moment that ended too early, a goodbye that felt incomplete. That is what the mind obsesses over, not closure, interruption. I learned this accidentally years ago. I was having one of those late-night conversations where tension was building naturally. Deep questions, slow pauses, that dangerous emotional intimacy people mistake for love. Then she asked me something personal. Have you ever truly loved someone? Old version of me would have opened the floodgates, explained everything, tried to create depth through confession. Instead, I looked at her for a second and said, "Once, but some things lose power when you explain them." Then I changed the subject. She brought that sentence up weeks later. That is when I understood something brutal. The mind keeps scratching at what it cannot fully access. That is why powerful men know when to stop. They leave conversations slightly unfinished. They disappear before emotional saturation. They end the night while tension is still alive. Not because they are playing games, because mystery breathes where overexposure dies. Law 14. Control access, and you control value. This law alone changes everything. Most men become emotionally cheap because they are too available. Instant replies, unlimited attention, constant presence, always there, always reachable. At first it feels generous, then slowly people stop respecting it. Because human nature has a dark pattern. What becomes constantly available eventually becomes psychologically invisible. You have probably lived this already. You gave someone unrestricted access to you, your energy, your attention, your time, and little by little they stopped treating your presence like something valuable. Not because you lacked worth, because you removed all friction. The dangerous man understands something most people never learn. Access is value. The harder it is to emotionally access you, the more weight your presence carries. That does not mean becoming cold or manipulative. It means becoming selective. Not everybody deserves immediate access to your attention. Not everybody deserves your emotional availability on demand. I remember when I stopped replying instantly to everyone, not strategically at first. Honestly, I was just tired of being emotionally accessible 24/7. And something strange happened. People started leaning in more. Conversations became more intentional, more invested, more careful. Because the moment your presence is no longer guaranteed, people become aware they can lose it. That awareness creates tension, and tension creates value. Weak men fear becoming unavailable because they think people will forget them. Powerful men understand the opposite. Scarcity creates psychological weight. When your attention is earned instead of freely distributed, your energy changes completely. You stop feeling like emotional infrastructure. You become something rarer, something chosen carefully, something people do not consume casually anymore. And once that happens, your presence stops feeling ordinary. It starts feeling expensive. Law 15. Become unreachable at the core. This is the final level most men never reach. Not because it is impossible, because it requires killing the deepest addiction a man has, the need to be chosen. Read that again. Most men are not controlled through force. They are controlled through hope. Hope for a reply. Hope for attention. Hope to be understood. Hope to be loved back with the same intensity they give. And that hope makes them weak. You can see it in the man checking his phone every 5 minutes, pretending he doesn't care. In the man staying loyal to disrespect because he fears losing the connection. In the man changing himself slowly just to keep someone from walking away. I know that feeling because I lived it. There was a time when silence from the wrong person could poison my entire day. One cold message and suddenly my mind was no longer mine. That is when I realized something brutal. Whoever controls your emotional state owns you. That is the final chain, and the dangerous man breaks it completely. Not by becoming emotionless, by becoming unattached. There is a difference. He can love without kneeling, desire without chasing, walk away without collapsing. He stops needing outcomes so nobody can manipulate him with distance, affection, guilt or withdrawal anymore. That changes everything. Because once people feel you are no longer desperate for validation, your presence becomes heavy, calm, difficult to move. Almost intimidating. You stop over-explaining, stop forcing connections, stop performing for acceptance. Now you simply observe, choose, and decide. And strangely, that is when people start chasing you the hardest. Not because you manipulated them, because you removed need from your energy. That is real dominance, not controlling others, controlling yourself so deeply that nobody else can control you. Most people watching this will hear these words and return to their old habits tomorrow. Same emotional hunger, same need for reassurance, same fear of losing people. But a few men will understand. A few will start speaking less, reacting less, needing less, and from that moment forward, their entire presence will change. Because the man who no longer fears losing people becomes impossible to control. That is not arrogance, that is freedom. Tomorrow's video goes even deeper. I'm going to break down the psychological habits that instantly expose male weakness in modern dating. The subtle behaviors women detect in seconds that silently destroy attraction before you even realize it. If you think you understand the game now, wait until you see that. Because most men are not rejected for what they say. They are rejected for the energy they leak without noticing. And once you learn to see it, you will never interact the same way again. But for now, watch the video appearing on your screen right now. It connects perfectly with what you learned today, because it reveals the hidden psychological triggers that make certain men unforgettable, while others become emotionally invisible. If this video opened your eyes, that one will complete the pattern. Click it now and keep going deeper. And if this video changed the way you see attraction, power, and emotional control, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment Unreachable below so I know you made it to the end. Most men will never understand the game, but you do. I'll see you among the few.